Good afternoon. Happy International Women's Day. I'm Catherine Nash with the Kentucky SBDC, and I'm so excited to be joining everyone for Kentucky State University's Women in Agriculture event today. As I mentioned, I'm with the Kentucky Small Business Development Center. My office here is at Kentucky State in the Cooperative Extension Building, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about the business of farming, how we can make sure that your farm is set up so that it is as structured legally and for tax purposes as a business. I also want to talk to you a little bit about the vision and mission and business plan for your farm, future generational planning. So I think we'll just get right into it. And at the very end, my contact information will be available. So I'm happy to reach out, speak with any of you all that need any assistance after this. So the IRS classifies a farm as a business if you cultivate, operate, or manage for profit, either as an owner or a tenant. And that is a farm that includes livestock, dairy, poultry, fish, fruit, truck farms. It also includes plantation, ranches, ranges, and orchards and groves. So I know we have a lot of different farmers throughout the Commonwealth. Some do traditional planting, some do fish, some do everything from dairy to fish to traditional grain planting. So we're going to make sure we highlight all of the needs of those. The first question I have for you that I'd like for you to think about as the farm owner and manager is, does your farm need a legal entity? And I've got 3 questions for you that will help you answer that. The first is, do you have assets separate from your farm? Do you have personal investments? Do you own a personal home? Do you own other businesses? Do you have a home in your name where you live? Do you have a home somewhere else? Any asset that isn't under the name of your farm, you would need to answer yes to that question. The next question is, do you have family to whom you want to leave your farm? Do you have a generational plan in place? Do you have children or siblings who may take over the farm when you're ready to retire or ready to sell? If that's the case, then obviously that's a yes to that answer as well. The next question is, does your farm have any debts? Does the farm employ any people? And do you have visitors to your farm? That's a really important question when we think about the legal status of your business in Kentucky. So if any of the answers to these questions are yes, then I want to talk to you a little bit about the different legal entities available to you in the Commonwealth. So the first option is a sole proprietorship. It's absolutely the simplest option. If the farm is in a different name instead of your personal name, then it needs only a certificate of assumed name in the county where you're located. However, the biggest aspect of having a sole proprietorship instead of a corporation or an LLC is that you don't have any liability protection. If something happens to an employee or a visitor on your farm and they were to be litigious and sued you for any damages or any pain and suffering, your personal assets are not protected. They can go after not only the farm, but you as the individual. So Jane Doe owns Doe Farm and Feed, and I'm visiting, and I slip and fall and hurt myself. I can come after you as not only Jane Doe Farm and Feed or Doe Farm and Feed, but also as Jane Doe the individual, which means that your personal assets do not have a protection. There's not a shield between your farm and your personal assets. So the next 3 entity options in Kentucky that we're going to discuss have a liability protection. The next one is a C corporation. This has a little bit more difficulty, a little different structure. You are a corporation governed by articles of incorporation and a board of directors. That board of directors will adopt written bylaws and appoint officers. More often than not, the owners are shareholders. So a certain number of shares are issued, and they don't necessarily participate in the day-to-day management of the business. This is very rare in Kentucky farms, though it is an option. It requires quite a bit more meetings, paperwork, and filings with the state. You have quarterly filings. You have to show that you had board meetings, things that were decided at those meetings. However, it does provide that liability protection. And when we get through with all these entities, I'm going to talk to you about the different tax aspects of each entity. But for now, this is what a C corporation is. Very rarely in Kentucky farms is this the case. Oftentimes you'll see it in some of our horse farms in the bluegrass, because those farms may be owned by people who don't live in the area and trust others to run those farms. And they just take dividends as shareholders on any earnings that the farm may bring in. But most often, unless it's a large farm that's producing poultry, fish at just a humongous amount, they don't necessarily need a C Corp. The next entity I want to tell you about is an S Corporation. This is very similar to a C Corp in that you're still going to have articles of incorporation. You're still going to have a board of directors with bylaws that appoint officers, but your tax status is different. Owners are still shareholders that don't necessarily participate in the day-to-day management. However, as with a C Corp, you still have that liability protection. If I slip and fall on your farm and you are a C Corp or an S Corp in the state of Kentucky, I can't sue and take anything from your personal assets, only the assets of the farm. And when we get into some ownership structures and taxation in just a few moments, I'll tell you about some different options. But for this, your personal assets remain yours, and they're not at risk as a farm owner. And the final option that we're going to discuss today, there are a few others, but the final option is going to be a limited liability company. This is really a hybrid option between a sole proprietorship and an S corporation. You have the same liability protection as a C Corp and an S Corp, but you are governed by articles of organizations and you have members. The members can be yourself only. You could be a sole membership LLC. You may have a business partner. You may have a spouse or a personal partner who can help you with this, and they can also be a member. You can separate ownership percentage. One member can have 90% and the other can have 10. Members can manage the farm directly. So if you own and do all the daily operations for your farm, then you're a managing member. However, if you own the farm, but you have others that manage it, then you are then you're a managing member. Then you're not a managing member. So all of these things would be determined in an operating agreement. You would have this designation chosen and would be reported in your articles of organization. It does require an annual renewal. To set up an LLC in Kentucky is a $40 fee. Then the annual renewal fee right now is $152. Sometimes that changes just a little bit each year, but that's all it really takes. You would update any needs or changes, and those things are done really easily. But most important in this aspect that I want to discuss, I want to make sure you understand, is the difference in the liability, where you're shielding your farm from your personal assets and any issues on that farm, whether it's an employee, whether it's a visitor, whether it is something that happens that's beyond your control, depending upon if your farm is close to a major interstate or an intersection or a highway. So the three bottom, the C Corp, the S Corp, and the limited liability corporation company, all provide you liability protection. The sole proprietorship does not. So I wanted to bring up a basic partnership. A lot of our farms in Kentucky have been around for generations, and they're operating as a basic partnership. You may own your so I want to bring up another option in Kentucky, a basic partnership. A lot of our farms have been around for generations, and they've been operating as a basic partnership long before legal entity options were available in the state. This may be that you own your farm with someone else, whether that person does any work on the farm or not, or they are just an investor, or they just take a percentage of revenue each year. So an example of this is sometimes when a parent or grandparent passes away and leaves their farm to siblings. One sibling lives in the area and wants to live on and or work the farm, where another may live hundreds of miles away and doesn't participate at all, other than in accepting some of the income, distribution of the earnings each year. That's a basic partnership. That can still be structured as a C Corp, an S Corp, or an LLC. And it may be in your best interest to do that. If nothing else, there should be a management and an operating agreement if you have a basic partnership. Those are something that a business attorney can assist you with. I'm happy to help you with that. But that makes clear, should there be any legal issues, especially if you are a sole proprietorship as opposed to a corporation. That will help any legal issues should there be an incident on your farm. And I also want you to not forget, nothing is permanent. You can go from being a sole proprietorship to an LLC in 30 minutes. You can amend those things. You can set that up with the Kentucky Secretary of State, which I'm going to get to later. You can also go from being a C Corp to an S Corp. All of these things are important aspects to discuss with your business attorney and with your accountant to make sure that your farm is set up in the way that best protects the farm, your personal assets, and the future of your plans for your business, whether it's with your children or to sell. So I want to discuss tax implications for each entity now and how they're taxed and how they're set up differently. A sole proprietorship is pass-through taxation. Income flows directly to your personal taxes. You'll file a Schedule C, you'll show income and expenses, and it's just a part of your personal tax filings. For a lot of you, it may just be what you do right now, especially if you don't pay yourself anything from the farm, but the income just comes directly into your personal account. You don't have a separate business account. The next option is a C corporation. This is the most technical and the most that has the most tax implications for a business in Kentucky, whether it's a farm or a manufacturing plant, because it undergoes double taxation. The farm as a business would file income taxes and would be taxed at that. And then as a shareholder, as we discussed, to that entity, as a shareholder, you would also then file taxes on your income from the farm. You would have to specify a number of authorized shares, and then you would file those taxes as an income, just like if you own shares in a company that's on the stock exchange. You own 100 shares of Apple. Apple submits tax paperwork to you at the end of the year showing your earnings, if you had any capital gains, if you sold, purchased any stock. All of those things would then go on your personal income taxes. So you can think of a C corporation as the same way. Apple paid taxes on its earnings, and then you pay taxes on your dividends or any sale of those shares. The next one is an S corporation. An S corporation is, again, a pass-through taxation. Income flows to shareholders and is reported on your personal tax returns. The one thing that can be a little different that your accountant can help you with is a corporation with more than one shareholder does file an informational K-1. And what that does is it provides the shareholder with information about the earnings and expenses of the farm over the course of the year. In all of these entities, and I want to stress this before we get to limited liability company, you can file quarterly or annual taxes. A lot of businesses, farms included, do these things quarterly so that at the end of the year, they don't have a huge tax bill or they're not concerned about getting something done in time and not having to file an extension. Those are options for you that are very important that you discuss with your accountant if you haven't already. So we've discussed sole proprietorship, C Corp, and S Corp. Finally, we'll discuss limited liability corporation. Again, a little bit of a hybrid. It has pass-through taxation, income flows to the owner or the owners, and it's reported on your personal taxes. You don't have to issue shares. The earnings and the expenses would be divided up based on the percentage of ownership of the members. So if you own 60%, and let's say you have a sibling that lives in California that owns the other 40% and takes 40% of the earnings, those things would be delineated in the operating and management agreement. And that's also how the earnings would flow to you in your taxes. But again, that's going to be a Schedule C on your tax returns, and that would show the earnings and the earnings and the expenses. All of these things you can discuss with your accountant. Again, I'm happy to discuss this with you. But what's important to know is that you don't need to have a number of shares, whereas with a C corporation, your farm, Jane Doe Farm and Feed, may need to issue shares, say 100 or 1,000, usually in even increments that are divided amongst the owners or that are solely the ownership of one person. So I want to talk to you about how you can do this in Kentucky. It's really not difficult. The Secretary of State's office has a very simple online system for this. The first link that I've listed is the Kentucky Secretary of State website, and it's just exactly as it says, sos.ky.gov. From there, you can get to the additional links that I have below, but I think it's important that you have these because so much can be done in each of these. The one-stop portal for all filings, whether you're going to be a limited liability corporation, a C Corp, or an S Corp, can all be done at onestop.ky.gov. You can also check the status of your business. If you have any concerns that maybe in the past, someone previous generation may have filed as a C Corp or an LLC, you can check that there. You can see if you're active or inactive within the Secretary of State in the state's office. You can also file paperwork to change that. You can close anything that may still be active and then open something differently. You can set up your business for the first time. You can make amendments. Let's say you already have an LLC, but you're taking on a partner. You're changing the name of your farm, you're adding a member, or you're removing a member. All of those things can be done online. You can also add registered agents. A lot of businesses in Kentucky have registered agents, whether it's an attorney or accountant. Maybe even as just a friend of the family who you want to have access to your Kentucky Secretary of State website account so that they can do anything should you become unable to do it. So that registered agent, you register them with the Secretary of State's office, make sure they have the information to get into your account. They can make changes on your behalf. They can also receive paperwork on your behalf from the Secretary of State's office. So for some people, that's really important to have, and for others, it's not necessary, but it's something that you can do online. You can find all the forms you need to do any of these things at sos.ky.gov/bus/forms. There's a plethora, an entire library of business forms available. Again, the Secretary of State has years ago made it possible for Kentuckians to do all of these things online, and it's a great benefit to our businesses, especially our small businesses, those that are, like a lot of you, don't have hundreds of employees and you're doing a lot of these things yourself. And again, my contact information is going to be at the end of this, but we can help you with all of these things. I'm happy to walk you through this. This is what I do every day. I help businesses make sure that they're set up in Kentucky the proper way, but also that they know what they're doing, that they know the steps, they know the dates that new filings need to be filed. They know how to make sure that the Secretary of State has a correct address, different email addresses and phone numbers to contact you should there be an issue. And also just make sure you have an account where you can get online and check these things at any time and make changes that you feel like might be important. The next thing I want to talk to you about is just a little bit different. I feel like the tax, the business status, the entity, the way you're set up in Kentucky is really important. But also what's important, and what I work with a lot of small businesses to do, is set up a vision and a mission for their business, a business plan. Your farm deserves a vision and a mission. Create a written statement if you don't have one already, and share it with those people who are your partners in the business or your employees. Make sure they know where your goal is for the farm. As women business owners, a lot of time we're doing so much, we can overlook these basic things and the needs of our business, but they're just as important for you as they are for a manufacturing company, as they are for Toyota in Georgetown. The mission that and the vision they have to serve their customers and employees. You want to have short-term goals on there, your long-term goals. You also want to discuss future owners. Have different things that give you and those employees and partners that you have insight into how you see not only the farm now, but how you see it in the future. I also am happy to help you with a written business plan if you don't have one already. If you have growth goals, if you have income earnings goals for your farm, one of the best things you can do is put it down on paper. And I can help you with that. We have software that you can utilize that's not of any cost to you, where you can talk about your current status, your annual plans. Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Financial plans and otherwise. Do you want to increase your employees? Do you want to go from 5 to 15 employees in 5 years? How are you going to do that? What income is needed to do that? Talk about your partnership and employee plans. Do you have a partner that you'll be buying out in the next few years? Do you have a partner you want to buy out, but you haven't discussed it with them yet? And maybe that's something we need to talk about. You need to have a conversation with someone who can give you some unbiased information. I'm here for you for that, as well as the rest of the Cooperative Extension Program at Kentucky State. Our goal is to see you exceed, and we want to help you, myself and the other agents, everyone from Dr. Pomper and Dr. Owens on down. We want to help you get to the place where you want your farm to be. And then the last part of a business plan can be that handoff. Are you going to sell it? Are you going to pass it on to future generations? Do you want future generations to slowly buy you out, or slowly buy the farm and put things in their name in a new LLC? Those are all things that we can discuss that I would love the opportunity to help you with. And again, I'm with the Kentucky Small Business Development Center. Our website is KentuckySBDC.com. The easiest way to contact me is via email. It's catherine.nash@uky.edu. That's my cell phone number. You can call me directly. You can text me, and I will return your phone calls and text as soon as possible. I work with almost 60 businesses across the state in every industry: farming, manufacturing plants, and then small mom and pop businesses that they may just be running out of their garage, custom paint jobs, welding people. I have a great variety of clients that I work with. And because we're supported by the Small Business Administration at the federal level, this is all done at no cost to you. And I'd love to help you. If you have any questions about the things I've said, if you'd like a copy of this presentation, and there's a way or there's a time that you'd like to meet and discuss, I'm happy to do those things. We can have phone calls, we can Zoom. I understand that you are busy businesswomen. You have things to do during the day. I have a lot of meetings that I have with my clients at night or on the weekends at a time that may be a little easier for you. So I want to wish you a happy International Women's Day again. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this celebration of women in agriculture in the Commonwealth. I look forward to working with you and hope that you'll reach out to me or the cooperative extension agents, anyone at the Kentucky State University. The university is here to help you. We want to see you succeed. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to celebrating again with you next year.